According to analysis by NASA, they found that 2017 was the second warmest year on record. Our planet's average surface temperature has risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1.1 degrees Celsius, since 1880, a change driven largely by increased carbon dioxide and other human-made emissions into the atmosphere. NASA's Goddard Institute of Space Studies Director Galvin Schmidt said, "We don't expect record years every year, but the ongoing long-term warming trend is clear. Most of the warming has occurred since 1981, with 17 of the 18 warmest years on record occurring since 2001. So we can see that it's happening. We need to deal with it. But I'm going to go now to the 6th hottest year since record keeping began. Of course, 2016 is number 1. Number 2 is 2017. Number 3 is 2015. Number 4 is 2014. And the 5th is 2005, and the 6th is 2009. This is going to be an annual thing. I want everybody to be aware of where we stand. Next, I'm going to talk about our rainfall records. Turlock's seasonal rainfall records that I'm reporting are near Osborne School, where I live. So the rainfall season here in California is between October 1st and September 30th. The first year that I've got down here is 2014 to 2015, which was a major drought year. We had 10 3/4 inches of rainfall the entire season. The next season, which was actually our 5th year and the last year of our last major drought, we had 16 1/4 inches of rain. Then, of course, last year's season, we had record amounts, not necessarily here in Turlock. Here I just measured 20 1/3 inches of rainfall, but in the northern parts of the state, we actually had up to 99 inches of rainfall. But we didn't get that much here. Then looking at this year, 2017 to 2018, we see that so far, up until today, we've had 7.95 inches, so say 8 inches of rain this year. If we compare that to last year's season to today, we'll see that last year we had 18 3/4 inches of rain. So at this point, that puts us 10 3/4 inches behind last year at this time. It's time for all of us to start thinking about conservation of water. So we really need to take this seriously. Everyone needs to be involved in this. We're going to have to start saving water. We don't know if this is going to be another 5-year drought. We know that this is what the scientists have told us, that we're going to have periodic wet seasons and long dry seasons. And this is just the beginning, because this is going to go on until we change our habits of polluting our atmosphere with greenhouse gases. And Turlock has got to do their share in stopping that type of pollution. But we need to get the energy conservation thoughts back into our mind. We have a surface water treatment plant that's in the building process. It's not going to be online until 2022 or 2023. We've got a lot of years to get through, and as you've heard previously at the meeting, staff has told us that the water table underneath the city is lowering. So we're going to have a real tough summer this year, it looks like. TID has plenty of water. The watershed areas above TID did get a lot of water, which is good for the farmers, but it's not going to help us here in the city. So I say it's probably time to print up more of those signs, staff, on Save Our Water, Every Drop Counts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schriebel. That's all I have for blue cards. Yeah, Mr. Franson. And if there's any other member of the public that would like to address the council.
Yes, good evening, City Council members. I wanted to speak about the policy setting. That's what I usually come up here trying to focus on. And one of the examples I have about trying to have council resolution with a follow through by city staff. So we had this emergency meeting regarding a replacement for a system, a communication radio system. And it's like about a $6 million purchase. I went on the City of Turlock website, and under the Mayor and City Council Policy Goals and Implementation Plan 2015 to 2019, a couple things that have come up recently. It's identify a replacement for or an upgrade to the computer-aided dispatch and records management system, no later than July 1st, 2016. So about a year and a half too late on that one. It says identify a body-worn camera system, no later than July 1st, 2016. I think I just heard something about that. I'm not sure where it stands on being approved or not. And then identify a replacement radio system, no longer than January 1st, 2017. So over a year late on that one as well. This is the mayor and city council's plan. And we're having an emergency meeting 8 months after the radio system failed. And of course, 2 years after your own plan calls to look for the replacement. So I think this goes to city staff though, because you guys directed it, right? But it's not getting done. And I think that's the importance of having a city manager, by the way, and full-staffed city management. But also on that note, then I'm also going to talk about roads. I see that there's supposedly a lot of money right now, that we have a lot of money in the reserves. Well, this is what some people are saying on the council. There's a lot of money in reserves. You're spending a lot of money, and on some priorities that I agree with, like the hiring of police or the like salary increases for retention, the communication system replacement. But where are roads? I've heard every single one of you and every single elected official in the recent, decade mention roads. And it's still barely in the general fund. I don't even know if it is, because a council approved $50,000 for road spending out of a $30-something million budget, and it didn't even get spent 1 year. And it was 2 years later through my questioning we found out it didn't get spent, and then it was increased to $100,000 a year. But now we're up to a $38 million budget. And roads, I believe it's second to public safety. Public safety roads, usually you guys say on your campaigns, then what, quality of life and maybe jobs, economy, which by the way, roads also go to both those. So how much is in the general fund for roads? Because we just got a tax, but the last I saw that we were about $100 to $125 million behind in road maintenance. The Stanislaus County road tax sends to Turlock, I don't know, let's just say about $80 million. So we're still $40 million behind if we did everything right now today, no cost increases, no inflation. So we're $40 million behind with all that money, and that's for 20 years. So $50,000 a year is going to cover us being $160 million behind. I can take a guess where we're going to be at in 20 years. Pretty much that number. I'm requesting that City Council look and direct city staff. I have not heard a request for something like $1 million in road funding. I've heard other department heads, the police, the fire, everyone's asking for money. I don't hear the road department asking for road money. Is that because it's pre-mitigated, pre-decided? This council is not going to spend any of our own money on roads. We're just going to hope for federal grants, state tax, gas tax raises. I mean, how do you guys plan on fixing and keeping up with being $160 million behind in roads? That goes to our jobs, quality of life, and public safety, everything. So city staff won't request it, but I'm requesting that city council actually put in your amendment request for $1 million in roads a year. It's still a small fraction, and it's the number 2 priority mentioned in probably every one of your guys' campaigns that I've seen. So again, that might be something if a city council member can put in council comments to address specifically roads, since there's money being handed out everywhere, spent everywhere. We have so much money in reserves right now. I think that needs to be addressed, please. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comments for the council? All right, I'll close public participation. Again, I apologize for being late. I was welcoming the UC Merced Chancellor. I believe you relayed the message, hopefully. So appreciate that. And I'll go back and review the comments that were made beforehand on the video tomorrow. Moving on, declaration of conflicts of interest and disqualifications. Seeing none, disclosure of top 10 maximum contributors is within the agenda. Moving on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items 5B and 5K will be removed for separate consideration. Are there any other items that need to be removed for separate consideration? Well, yes, Councilmember Scare.
Yes, Mayor, I'm requesting that we pull 5A for explanation.
Separate review. Okay, anything else? Okay, what is the pleasure of the council on the consent calendar, less items 5A, B, and K?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacob, seconded by Councilmember DeHart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Adopting the amended consent calendar, Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soyset.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Let's go in alphabetical order. 5A, Councilmember Scare, as Kelly Jacob Center comes on up. Do you have any comments?
Yes, I had received an email questioning some of the demands that were on the schedule that are being paid that date back to August of 2017. And so they were asking me if this was common practice or what, why it was on there. So I did send a request to Kelly to research this for me, and essentially she's going to give us a little history on why this is. She's going to explain it for us. Thank you.
Good evening. I did have to do some research because I haven't seen an old date in quite a while. What we do is the current accounts payable demands or checks, they're put on here by every week current. EFTs, which we pay through payroll, which is usually withholding from employees' checks, other payments that are withheld from employees' checks, we actually pay through the EFT, electronics funds transfer process. And they aren't putting the EFTs up for the council to approve until they balance that month. And yes, we're behind that much. So this was, they got August balance. I know they have September balanced. I'm going to talk to them because I don't know why there would need to be a wait. Of why we need to wait till that they go back and balance. Does anyone have any questions?
Sufficient?
That's clear enough for me. I just want, like I said, I just want an explanation.
Anyone?
For any the cameras, whoever's out there, the listening, just so they know what
Absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely. Anyone from the public have a question on this? All right, bring it back. What's the pleasure of the council?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Scare, second by Councilmember DeHart on item 5A. Clerk, please call the roll.
Accepting weekly demands of March 1st, 2018 in the amount of $496,639.16. Accepting monthly demands of August 31st, 2017 in the amount of $1,038,649.29. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soyset.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 5B, Mr. Bray.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight before you, staff is requesting appropriation of $175,000 of unallocated reserves of Section 2103 gas tax funds for Project 1047. Project 1047 is a design-only project for federal road rehabilitation projects, and the project started back in 2010. There's one last project that's yet to be designed and constructed, which consists of two road segments, the first being the rehabilitation of Lander Avenue from South Avenue to Glenwood, and the second segment being Hawkeye Avenue from Olive to Dobbenberger. The design project has produced shovel-ready projects for 12 separate road segments since 2010, and is comprised of federal road funds and Section 2103 gas tax funds. In an effort to maintain the project funding level current, staff has worked with the Finance Department and determined that the project needs additional funding. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely. Are there any additional questions? Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Bray. I think I was the one that asked that this be pulled for discussion. And I think that the part of the challenge that we face, whether it's staff, whether it's council, whether it's public, is an understanding of what it takes to get these projects off the ground. We're not even talking about fixing a road yet.
Correct.
We're not even talking about building a road. We're talking about design.
Correct.
and we're talking something in excess of, or nearly $200,000. So it's not the most straightforward topic that we have to deal with. Do we need to make progress? Absolutely. Do we need to commit to projects and fixing roads? Absolutely, without doubt. This has been going on since when?
Since 2010.
2010. This is a design work. This is not even a repair.
This is design work for 13 separate road projects.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring attention to it because I think many times the frustrations, while valid, I think can be assisted in some way. It doesn't ease the pain any, but perhaps it might at least help to gain some understanding, which is beyond, oh, by the way, the scope of this council. We're still interacting with federal agencies, state agencies, county agencies, and all we can do is kind of pull the projects along. So thanks for the explanation, and appreciate the explanation.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Yes, Councilmember Scarr.
It was kind of interesting that it was pulled because I had also sent an email to Eric about 5B, also had the same questions, and so I'm glad that you pulled it before I got to it.
Any additional questions from the council or the audience on this item? All right, we'll bring it back. I do want to echo these sentiments that when we go out and fight for federal funds or state funds, we do need to have these shovel-ready projects designed and ready to go, so this actually helps us get primed and to secure those funds. Specifically, you look at Monte Vista or you look at any of these other projects we've gone out and received money for, a lot of legwork ahead of time, so you can't wait until you have the funds to design it, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to spend the money in order to get the money sometimes.
Correct, absolutely. All right, what's the pleasure of the council on this item?
I'll advance.
All right. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, second by Councilmember Scarr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Appropriating $175,000 to account number 215-50-511-51270, construction project from Fund 217, Parks, Recreation, and Public Facilities Department Street Maintenance, Section 2103 Gas Tax, unallocated reserves for City Project number 1047, preliminary engineering for various road rehabilitation to complete the necessary funding required for this project. Councilmember Scarr?
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart?
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Soisek?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item K, Mr. Cook, it's all you.
Good evening, Mayor Soiseth, members of the council. Item 5K is approving an agreement with Badger Meter Incorporated for the purchase of all water meters for our residential, commercial, and some industrial accounts in an annual amount not to exceed $154,000. This agreement was originally approved by the City Council on November 15 of 2016. It was a one-year agreement with the option of 3 one-year extensions. The existing agreement expired November 15th of 2017, and the city failed to submit the election to extend the agreement. That was an oversight on our part, so the agreement did expire. So therefore, a new agreement is needed to continue purchasing meters for our customers. Just so you know, we spent about $50,000 to date. Our last purchases were in January of 2017. And we're getting low on inventory. We went to go purchase and realized the purchase agreement had expired. So we brought this back to you for your consideration. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
Thanks, Mayor. Once again, Mr. Cook, thank you very much for the explanation. What kind of estimate can you give us with respect to completion of known inventory of homes and lacking of meters?
Okay, so every single-family home has a meter. These are replacement meters, so if one goes bad, goes wrong, gets damaged, we have inventory on hand to replace them.
So does $154,000, what does that represent in terms of number of units?
So each unit will be about $150, I think. So what's that, 1,000 units? So yeah, and we have about 16,000 of these meters in the ground.
So we might understand that we're going to have that many failures each and every year, that we have to continue to reappropriate these dollar values?
We have a continual replacement program for meters. These first meters went in 2008, and they generally have a 10-year life expectancy for the point to replace. And so as part of your water rates and our budgeting, we set money aside every year for water meter replacement. So basically, through paying the rates the customers pay for replacement of their meter, this is to make sure we have stock on hand to replacement as they go out.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Scarr.
Yeah, also, Michael, and there was no gap in service or any problems because it did expire in November and we're trying to
That's
renew
correct.
it, so.
We still have some inventory on hand. We've been okay. So no problem replacing them to date.
Any additional questions or comments from the council or the audience? Yes, Mr. Trueweiler.
Michael, I just had several questions. When we first had our water meters installed, each individual was charged a rate. We had an additional, what was it, $10 per month rate to pay for these water meters. So now some of these water meters are wearing out. Are we still paying that $10 rate? I'd have to look at my bill. I know there's still an additional rate. I think it's $2 a month now or something. But my second question is, as people are coming in and new houses are being built, is this supply going to them, or are you purchasing a separate supply to cover the new construction that's going on here in the city at this time?
So some of these meters are used for new construction, and again, as people move into houses, they pay impact fees and other things. They cover the cost of that meter, so it's accounted for separately, but we do replace them with this account. In terms of, I remember back, the old rate structure had a meter replacement fee. I think so you're talking about. It wasn't $10 a month. I think it was, I'll say $1.50 a month. It's whatever. Well, it's $120 divided by 120 months. No, 10 years. I can't remember how we did the math, but it was something like that. So it's about $1, a little over $1 a month with some inflation, if I remember correctly. So you have, what you're talking about is probably your customer charge on your bill? No, that's a separate item. Anyway, that money is now being absorbed into the regular fee. It's not charged separately. Okay. And so it is being paid, but it's part of your regular bill.
I'm not sure if I can find this as quick as I'd like to, but I saw it online. Okay, this is item 5K, you said? Oh, come on.
That's all right, take your time.
You got 5K?
Right here, huh?
The thing I didn't understand, there does have the pricing here of the meters, and I'm trying to recall what that was. I just looked at it actually today, but it seemed like it was more than that. Okay, here we are, right here. The 1-inch meter, it says $751.81 unit price. Oh wait, this is 3-inch. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one.
Ooh, you gave me a heart attack.
Yeah, really. Okay, the 3/4 inch is $142. The 1-inch residential meter is $177. The 1.5 inch meter is $361. But again, if this is to cover all the new construction, we have quite a few houses going in. I mean, they're not going to need it this year, but this is going to go. This is an ongoing thing. It comes up every year. Is this the amount for every year?
Okay, so it's two things. It's to replace existing inventory, the 18,000 meters roughly we have already, and it's also to cover new meters that go in, about 100 to 200 new meters per year. And again, the new meters are paid for separately through impact fees and connection fees, development fees we call them, but we put that money, some of that money in this account to pay for the meters. So it's not $50,000 a year just for new houses. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Any additional questions from the audience? All right, bringing it back, what's the pleasure of the council on this item?
Move to advance.
All right, do I have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Diaz, seconded by Vice Mayor Jacob. Clerk, please call the roll.
Approving an agreement with Badger Meter, Inc., DBA National Meter and Automation for the purchase of all positive displacement residential and turbine water meters for the City of Turlock fixed network automated meter reading system in an annual amount not to exceed $154,500. Councilmember Iscar?
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart?
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Soisek?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Treeweiler, for your comments. We have no final readings. We have no public hearings. Scheduled matters. 8A, request to appropriate $72,214 for the addition of 3 new firefighter positions effective April 1, 2018, or appropriate $130,000 to cover additional overtime costs for fiscal year 2017-18, or authorize the fire chief to reduce minimum daily staffing levels for the remainder of fiscal year 2017-18 in order to adhere to the adopted budget. Chief Carlson.
Mayor and council, thank you. This item before you was born out of the mid-year budget workshop we had a few weeks back, March 10th. And at that time, I told you that this one specific item, as we move forward, we would need direction on. And we're at that point. I anticipate that the line item for our overtime will run out right around April 1st, and that's including the salary savings we have for that line. So before you, you'll see 3 different options, and we are looking for direction on one of those options to go forward the rest of this fiscal year and then on to the next fiscal year as we have a 2-year budget. So I know we covered a lot of it at that meeting. I'm going to go over it again briefly to refresh your memory so that you can help you to make your decision, and along the way stop me if we have any questions, or we'll have time for that also at the end. So briefly, the fire department, as you know, runs 4 fire stations with 3 people at each station with a battalion chief over them. So our normal daily staffing would be 1 battalion chief, 4 captains, 4 engineers, and 4 firefighters for a total of 13 total staffing on duty. That's our minimum staffing that we run every day of the year, 365 days, and it's been like that since the council adopted it back in 2007, I believe. So to accomplish that, we run 3 shifts, as you know, 24/365. We have 3 currently in the budget, 3 battalion chiefs, 15 captains, 15 engineers, 12 firefighters. The reason we've always run with 12 firefighters, this has been going on since the recession. At one point we did have 15 firefighters, but we've been going with 12 firefighters because, as you know, overtime, the cost of overtime is less than the cost of salary and benefits for a full-time firefighter. And it is about $40,000 per position at the entry-level firefighter spot. As firefighters gain seniority and their step increases go up, that number gets smaller, but this is just what a ballpark figure is, and the more time they have in, the smaller and smaller that number is going to be. So going back, why we're kind of in the shortage we are, our allocated overtime per year is $500,000 in this line, and it has been for the last several years. As you can see, we've exceeded that number every year for the past 5 years. 2013, 14, 14, 15, and 15, 16, hovering right around $560,000, and that's when we were at full staffing. 16, 17, and 17, 18, the numbers are increased because we've lost some people during that time and are now just at the point where we are filling those positions. So we currently have 4 vacancies, and that's why the estimated overtime is going to be running about $900,000 this year. Of that, through April 1st, I anticipate about $260,000, $270,000 in salary savings. That's with the help of Julie Burke getting those numbers. So that is all where we are as of April 1st. We are at about $760,000. So what contributes to those costs? Well, the no relief firefighters, as we call them, the only 12 firefighters in the department rather than 15 like the other numbers. Also, the overtime cost, Councilmember Esquero was asking what contributes to that, base salary of about $500,000 is injuries, sick time usage, comp time, some vacation and holiday time. Remember, we run minimum staffing every single day, so if one of these things occurs, we hire back for them. The last one, the MOU adjustment, as you know, the firefighters in fiscal year 17-18, their concessions were restored and they received a 3.5% COLA. So the salary schedule being adjusted also is necessary to adjust the overtime schedule because one follows the other. So assuming the average normal cost was about $560,000, as you saw from a couple slides ago, taking into account the new MOU those total costs were to be about 70,000 additional to that. So what we would need in that line ongoing to maintain the minimum staffing levels with the current budgeted positions would be about $630,000. So that's where we are. Historically, this line's been underfunded based on the direction for the minimum staffing and the number of budgeted positions. So what we do have is three options for you to consider going forward. So option A would be to hire 3 additional firefighters to fill the rank of at that firefighter level to equal that of the captains and engineers. So we would have 15 per shift, allowing 1 relief firefighter per shift. That being done, we're requesting, if you choose this option, to start the clock April 1st, although we know we won't be able to hire them by then, the salary savings then would accrue and let us get those next 3 people in the pipeline. And it just happens we have 4 finishing backgrounds now. It would be the time to do it because we could add the 3 additional into that and only run 1 academy, which would save money, and better than to hire 4 and then hire 3 a month later if this is the way you go. So that option for the rest of this year would be $72,000 and change, and then ongoing next year around $330,000, and that includes the firefighters still have 1 year left on their contract, and that would include the MOU roll-up. With that, I believe that the allocated overtime cost in that line of $500,000 would be sufficient. It's an educated guess with the help of Julie Burke as far as what I think it would be. I don't think it would be more than that. I'm certain, probably fairly certain it would be less than that, but I just don't know how much. Obviously, whatever, if there was a savings, if it did come out to a savings, it would come back into the general fund. So I would be able to gauge it better a little bit as time goes forward, but it's just you can't read injuries and things like that. Option B would be to allocate an additional $130,000 to the overtime standard budget to reflect the MOU changes for 17-18, and then budget another $130,000 in fiscal year 2018-19, making that line's budget $630,000, which I feel is going to be the necessary amount with the current allocated positions. As you can see, option B will in next year save approximately $200,000 versus option A. However, it won't address some of the problems we talked about before as far as firefighter fatigue. Right now, we have firefighters, some working in excess of 1,000, 1,500, even 2,000 hours per year. So it's pretty excessive overtime amounts. And as we talked about at the budget meeting, when you start to work your 3rd day, your 4th day, your 5th day in a row, your level of acuity goes down and becomes riskier for both the firefighters and for the citizens. And then option C, and that would be to reject options A and B, which at your direction, if you were to say, that's it, no more overtime, it would result in the immediate closure or brownout of at least 1 fire station for the rest of this fiscal year, and then at some point during the next and ongoing fiscal years, because I know that the currently allocated numbers will just not cover the demand with the minimum staffing levels. And again, these minimum staffing levels have been in place since 2007. Depending on the circumstances, injuries, anything else, it would be a complete stoppage of all overtime. So staffing would be reduced anywhere from 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 firefighters per day, depending on the shift and the circumstances. What that would translate to are longer response times, because we'd be responding into districts without an engine covering it, less available engines, reduced on-scene capabilities, and literally a change in our firefighting operations and tactics, because you need certain people in certain areas to do what we do. Talking to Chief Taloni, obviously we recommend option A. It would reduce firefighter fatigue, eliminate mandated holdovers, and eliminate the need for those 5, 6, 7 days in a row. It's safer for the firefighters and for the public. And with that, be happy to answer any questions or take direction.
Any questions or comments for Chief Carlson? Yes, Councilmember Scarrett.
Yes. Thank you, Chief, for the information that you sent. I'd requested information for the last 3 years regarding the overtime and the dollars versus manpower of overtime versus new hires, and I received 17 pages of information, so I don't know if you're trying to get me to not ask any more questions, or...
I just want to make sure I answered your question, sir.
But anyway, no, I thank you for the information. I had a chance to go over it. As I reviewed the options, I like the savings on option B. However, I don't like the fatigue. You tell me that they're working 1,500 hours overtime. A regular work year for a regular 40-hour person is 2,080 hours. And when I've got firefighters working 1,500 and 2,000 hours overtime, that's extremely excessive and unsafe as far as I'm concerned. So the information you gave me was very helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any additional comments? Yes, Councilmember Dehart.
Just curious, Chief, why are we talking 3 instead of 4?
I'm sorry, what?
Why are we talking 3 new positions instead of 4? Because we got 4 stations.
Because we run 3 shifts. So it would be 1 per shift, and basically, right now we have 4 firefighters per shift, so you have 1 in each station. This would be the 5th firefighter on the shift to cover every day one of those other firefighters is on a vacation or holiday, out sick, has comp time. And what it also would do, on certain days when that doesn't happen, it would translate into an extra person on duty that day. So the number would go from 13 to 14 staffing for that particular day. We don't talk about that very often because we don't go above minimum staffing hardly ever at our current structure, maybe a handful of days a year. So this would be something, I don't say unprecedented, but in a long time since we've had that.
It's kind of like a utility ball here.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Additional questions or comments? Yes, Vice Mayor.
In that, I guess, hypothetical situation, where would that additional firefighter be stationed?
Well, speaking now as the operations chief, I would put them right now at Station 2 on the squad. The squad is the program where we start to deal with more of those high-risk, low-frequency calls. They go to different parts of the city on the higher-risk types of calls, and it would be a good mentoring position for that person to be ready to take a spot on that apparatus.
Additional questions, comments?
Question.
Yes.
Actually, Chief, one of the things I was going to ask, and I almost forgot, but would it be worth looking into getting, I know we've talked about this in the past, I've heard it mentioned, but getting a smaller unit for maybe a couple of paramedics or something like that, that's to handle some of the calls, because we know that all the calls that you get don't require a full truck to go out with fully staffed, because that's man hours, and once they get on scene, they're stuck there until it's resolved. What would be,
That's a
what
plan
would it
that,
take to get there?
okay, that's a plan that other cities have looked into. We do have a pretty good relationship with AMR right now. They're usually right behind us in the city of Turlock. What you're looking at is, in my mind, at least 2 per shift, so it would be an additional hiring of 6 personnel to go to those calls. However, most of those calls, you don't know what you're going to get. You can Monday morning quarterback them really easily, but calls that come in as, somebody with difficulty breathing or, ultra level consciousness that you think are everyday calls, you get there and they're having a heart attack or a stroke or something much more severe. We found it better to respond to the emergencies we know with everything we know we need to mitigate them. There's definitely something you would like us to look at. We could look into it. It's been done in bigger cities to alleviate some of the call volume that's happening, but I can tell you it would be more expensive than any of these 3 options to be viable.
Additional comments or questions from the council? Yes.
Perhaps just a little more history, Mayor. I have and along with Council Member Bublak, we were in a situation in July, August of 2013, something like that, where all of a sudden we were closing down a station, we were bringing it out. And it didn't make any sense at the time. That was the birth of the overtime. And, well, okay, what is some help here? Why did we close it down? We can't hire the individuals, but Why can't we get some at least assistance for the people that are serving? That was the origin of it, number one. Number two, even then, as it was established, known, that it was not a sustainable program. We knew at the time that it was not sustainable. However, we were not going to allow a station to brown down like you've described in option 3. I don't think we can afford to do that here in today's environment either, simply because of the growth that we've seen since then. So just a little historical perspective, that's where that money came from, or that's where it originally started and why. It's no less valid today, but now we have the opportunity to perhaps change our solution to the basic problem. So,
No, you're absolutely right. At one time, we were down to 9 firefighters, and the overtime was actually even higher out of different lines. So we have taken a step intermittently, but I feel this could be the next step. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions from the council? All right, from the audience. Anyone from the audience like to address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the council for further discussion. Yes. Oh, yes, Councilmember Bublak.
So one of my things is I always wait until after the council comment to make comments, just so that anybody out there wants to, you know, say something, they don't feel like I've shut them down. So my feeling is, and not one of you was here when I did that on the dais, when I first started, we laid off 23 people. It was the worst day of my political life. I think 5 of them were firefighters. We don't know what we have for money. We're sitting here trying to figure out how to handle some crisis situations. And the last thing I want to do is have to lay off somebody again. We need to get through these budgets before we start hiring people and then have to turn around and fire or lay them off. I don't want to be a part of that. It's not something I want to caution you. Wait and see where we're at with our budgets. And we also, this is Groundhog Day, because we always face this. So we do need to come to a solution on how we handle it and not have to keep facing this on a regular basis towards the end of our budget. But I'm going to caution you one more time. If we hire today, we're carrying on exponentially a huge amount of money that we don't know that we have. And so let's get through our budget and then see if that's something that we can work towards as soon as we get to the new fiscal year. That's just my view.
Any additional comments or questions on the council from this one? Anyone? I mean, it's a discussion, so what would you like to do?
Advance option A.
Okay, do I have a second? All right, I think for me, in looking at it, and I appreciate the comments from Councilmember Bublak, and I agree that we need to be fiscally prudent and don't want to find ourselves in that situation. I think that the fatigue aspect that Councilmember Scare brought up is hugely important to consider when we look at this. Also, like you said, it is Groundhog Day, and this is a situation that continues to come up, and it's something that we need to look at seriously and make sure that our fire department has the right staffing resources. I think it's, and you brought this up about a public safety tax. I think that that's not the route I prefer to go. At the same time, I think that we need to explore other options that are out there, looking at cost-sharing agreements with border development, looking at TOT, looking at outsiders paying their way when they come in and use services here in the city of Turlock to pay their way. And so I'm fairly confident that we can find those solutions to make sure we can fund this. But I do think that firefighter fatigue is something that we need to take very seriously as a council, and that that is part of the reason why I feel a very strong support of option A as well. But I won't make the second. I just wanted to give my comments on it as well. So yes, Councilmember Scare.
I would just have to say, yes, option B, I don't like it because of the fatigue and the safety hazards there. Option C, as far as the browning out of station, is unacceptable. I would like to see maybe an option D, but with what we've got in front of us, and the timeframes that we're looking at, I will go ahead and second option A.
Additional comments or questions? All right, yes, Councilmember DeHart.
I guess the only reason that I didn't second it, just to echo not only what you have said, Mayor, but also Councilmember Bublak, is that I would hate to see a measure like this that is very well-intentioned fail. That's my biggest concern, because I think it sends the wrong message. The message that needs to be sent is that we are committed, absolutely committed to getting this squared away. We just don't have sufficient information to do so right now. If there is a way to identify, it's not a spending problem, folks, it's an income problem. And my dad in business used to say that there's only one solution to down business, and that's more income. And that's the situation in which we find ourselves. If we can't generate more and additional income, we don't have any business committing additional funds. It's not that our desire is not there. That's a mistruth. It's a mischaracterization of how I feel, how I think other people have expressed that they feel. That's my caution on this particular measure at this particular time on any one of these options. Option C, completely unacceptable. Option B, close to that. Option A is really the only one. However, I would just caution us, we don't want to be laying off however many people and living with that for the next 12 years. So I'm very concerned with this one.
I can completely agree with you. If those are the only three options I know of to keep the minimum staffing level that you want with the budget that I have and the budgeted positions that I have. So Chief Taloni and myself and the command staff, we spent a lot of time trying to think of options. I don't know what else to say. If you can think of a better option D, I'm all ears.
Option D, the one with the rabbit in the hat, that was the one that I think he could have brought up for. Yeah, that didn't work. Yes, Councilmember Bublak.
So this is no different than what we're doing with our dispatchers and our police right now, and I totally agree that we are overworking all of our employees and not compensating them well. We're talking about 3 months to figure out what our budget looks like. Right now, the last budget hearing didn't really give me any understanding of what we had, what our expenses have to be, and what we'll have left. So we're talking about 3 months. We're still doing this to the dispatchers and the police officers, and I'm not happy with anybody having to work over. I don't want to make a motion or agree to something on a hope and a prayer that we're going to find more money somewhere else by doing something different. Until I know we have it, I don't want to spend that dollar. And it's no disrespect to any firefighter, anybody. And I don't want to brown out. But let's get through the rest of the fiscal year, which is a couple months, and let's plan to figure out, to finish this off once and for all. No more reoccurring overtime issues unless something horrific were to happen.
Yes.
Can I then ask a clarifying question, Councilmember Bublak? What option or what exactly are you suggesting that we do?
I would suggest option B, because we're talking about $400K on option A, quite frankly. If for the minimum amount of months, we're talking about $72,000. But if you're really looking at it, it's a roll-up cost. We're talking about employees. So option B is we're going to have to pull some money out. We're going to have to continue to fund overtime so that we don't have a brownout. So option B.
Yes, Councilmember Scare.
I have a tough time with option B because I see where you're going and I understand that, but what happens if in that extra overtime hours due to fatigue, one of our guys gets hurt? What's that gonna cost us? So now you're weighing overtime costs against hiring costs against liability costs. So I don't see a good situation here, but B is tough for me because of that.
Interim City Manager.
Well, Mayor and Council, the reason we thought long and hard on these three options, and they are literally the only three options that we have to us. And we selected option A to put on the 3 firefighters, not through rolling the dice or picking a number out of a hat. A lot of time consideration. And we have firefighters that work 48 hours in a row. That's their schedule. So when they work in overtime, that's another 24 hours. And sometimes firefighters don't go home. They're there for 4 days, 5 days in a row. 2,000 hours at the end of the year. Is that fair to them? I mean, right now, critical incident stress is a major thing going on in the fire department. When in the last week, there's probably 5 or 6 firefighters that have passed. 2 in the city of York. Their staffing is probably a little less than ours. I ask you to look hard and long on this. It's not something very frivolous to throw three firefighters in front of you. I know in the past it's been, layoffs, but we have sound management here. We're looking for resources. We got things that we're working on, and I strongly ask that you give a hard, long look at option A.
Councilmember Bublak.
My other explanation for option A is, and you said it yourself, Chief, we're not gonna hire these people within this fiscal year. So we hire these people to fill in the overtime, we're still paying the overtime, and then they'll get trained and set, but it won't be, it'll be realistically, what, July 1st?
Actually, if you were to select option A, I'll have the background people start pulling the next 3 backgrounds. Our academy is set to start, if you were not to choose option A, May 1st. This would probably push it back to May 16th or June 1st. So it just happens to be that time that we already have kind of our ducks in a row pending backgrounds.
And when would they be firefighter?
When would they be online?
On themselves with no.
Right. So if we were to be able to hire them, say June 1st, they would go through a 5-week academy and they would be online, you're right after the first of the year. But regardless of when we do hire them, we do need to put them through that 4 to 5, 6-week academy so they learn our equipment, tactics, strategies, much as the police has their FTO program.
Yes.
And the way we do it in the fire services, they're a firefighter 1 before they even get to us. They're an EMT before they get to us. We don't hire them and train them. They come to us already trained. Now they learn at our academy with our fantastic instructors, teaching them the way Turlock does things. So when you have 3 people on a hose line, you need a team effort. Everyone's got to be thinking the same. Who gets the nozzle, who gets the door, who humps the hose? Everybody's got to be thinking on the same, and hoping the cavalry's coming back yet. If you get hit by the train, well, okay, we have to do what we have to do. But it's team effort. So in the fire academy, we teach them our way. They're already trained when they come to us, but we train them how we work.
Absolutely. Yes, Councilmember DeHart.
If I can slip in before you, Mayor.
Absolutely.
It almost sounds to me like we have a hybrid of 2 options here. We're gonna be needing to train up so that we have people online, but in the meantime, we're still gonna need some overtime time. We're not gonna be able to escape that, it seems to me. And so, what would be or what could be a good hybrid option for us between those 2?
Well, I guess the question would be then, when would you look to want to hire that next group? The reason I put in the start date of April 1 was so that salary savings would start accruing from April 1 until June when I was able to hire them. And that amount of salary savings combined with pushing the current academy back so I would get salary savings for the other group would offset the option B for $130,000. So kind of built into option A is the hybrid if the academy were to start June 1. Now, if you were wanting to fund the rest of this year's overtime without the additional hiring at $130,000 and look to do another academy next year after the budget came out, then I would have to, based on the amount of months, the numbers of the overtime we would need out of that additional $130,000 next year versus the cost of the training, the additional academy would have to run. It can be done. I just, off the top of my head, I probably couldn't give you a smart number.
Yeah, I get what Councilmember DeHart's is saying, and I think that basically if we avoid option C, which is browning out, which I think everyone here says is off the table, where there's no way of getting around from now until the first of the year, overtime, that we need to keep these stations running. And so you're saying that either we can do the Band-Aid approach of option B, which is to just continue just to do that with overtime budget without a long-term solution, which is to actually bring on some more folks at the same time that we already have something in progress. You can kind of piecemeal it, but we're going to be back right in this situation again, most likely next year and then the following, if we don't really address this. And I think that going back to your point, Councilmember Bublak, I agree with you. With the police department and dispatchers, and actually a lot of the other departments, we are looking strongly at staffing levels and knowing that our staff are overworked and they're performing well, but we need to give them the support. And we've already taken some strong steps with the police department, and we're going to be looking at that at the other departments over the next couple budget workshops. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I would love to have more of a hybrid, I agree, but really there's no way of getting around, if this is correct, there's no way of getting around paying for overtime between now and...
If you want to keep the stations
Correct.
open and the minimum staffing, one way or the other, yes, we'll need some funds. I do understand what Councilmember Bublak's saying about having to lay off. I mean, that, I was here when that happened. It was terrible. That's why I'm asking for direction, not giving a demand.
Absolutely. And that's on us as policymakers. And I know that if we start to get in that corner, I know that Kelly Jacobs Hunter and her team will be informing us of where our funds are coming in with property tax, sales tax, and everything, so we can kind of hopefully plan, and then you guys could help us avoid such an option if that occurs. So I do have a motion for option A. Do I have a second for option A? Yeah. Gil, you have a second for option A? Any final discussion? All right, clerk, we have a motion and a second.
Appropriating $72,214 to account number 110-30-300-41001, full-time salaries and associated benefit accounts from Fund 110, General Fund Unallocated Reserves, for the addition of 3 new firefighter positions effective April 1, 2018, and amending the 2-year budget to reflect the new staffing additions. Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart?
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak?
No.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Soisek?
Yes, motion carries 4-1. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Chief Carlson.
Thank you.
I move on to request to accept the City of Turlock Fire Department 2017 annual report. Chief Carlson, you're back up.
Mayor and council, thank you. Stacy's going to help me get this up. So before you, you'll see your 2017 annual report. And executive staff, you have a copy as well, and there are copies in the back if any of the public would like to follow along. In the interest of time, you can feel free to read this at your leisure, enjoy it, have your friends sign it, everything like that. But we're just going to go through some of the highlights real quick for you. So, 2017 annual report. It's my pleasure to be able to report that to you. Table of contents on the first page. We're not going to go through every single page for you, but if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me. So one big thing we do, public education, and you'll see on the first several pages just some of the events that we participated in with the fire department, the Mayor's Youth Conference, Block Party's National Night Out, teaching CPR at the junior high, the Stand Behind the Line ceremony, open house. We had 3 promotions in 2017. Captain Kevin Tidwell became a captain, and 2 engineer promotionals, Dale Meldon and Dan Nenny. So we're very proud of them, and thank you for everybody that attended all those with us. In addition, the 911 ceremony, the dedication of our new engines. So quite a full year as far as public education. Quickly moving on to operations. We'll get rid of that picture. So the operations divided into basically 2 separate things, our daily operations and our special operations. Talking about our daily operations real quick, one thing that I'm really proud of as the operations chief is, again, this year we were able to decrease our on-scene time to emergencies. We're well below the national average. And when I say on-scene time, I mean the time from somebody picks up the phone, calls 911, to the time we get our first engine at your doorstep. So you call 911, the dispatchers, who do a phenomenal job, shorthanded, triage it, send the appropriate people, they in turn dispatch us. our time to, what we call a turnout time. It's a fire, it takes a little longer. You put on your appropriate gear for wrecks, medical calls, whatever, and then the driving response time. And so what I really stress on our guys to focus on is their turnout time, the time to get ready to get in the engine and get to that call. Because I don't want to tell anybody to drive faster than what they think is safe or anything like that. That's not where we want to save time. But again, we were able to decrease our time to 4 minutes and 53 seconds this year on average, which is the fastest I believe we've had since I can remember. Total yearly call volume, you can see for the last 3 years it's remained fairly flat. This last year we responded to right around 6,800 911 calls. It did take several sharp increases. If you were to go farther to 2012, 11, 10, there was averaging a 5 to 10% increase per year. And since then it's remained fairly flat. But if you look at the total engine company responses on the next page, you can see that that consistently is increasing. There's several reasons for that. One, we redid our response matrix to make sure we got the appropriate amount of engines to these calls in the fastest amount of time possible. And one of the main reasons why we did this is the county's adopted what is known as a pit crew CPR. It's high intensity CPR calls. So when somebody suffers a cardiac incident, we immediately dispatch 2 engines to those calls so we can have the manpower there to help affect a positive response. And studies have shown that the quicker that you can get on the chest, as far as CPR, the better chances for somebody to have a viable outcome, not just make it to the hospital, but actually return to a normal life. And statistics have found that the numbers of these responses have gone way up. So one of the reasons we see an uptick in our total engine company responses. The other thing is we're seeing more complex calls. The freeway, high-speed accidents, hazmat calls, rescues, things like that. There's been a definite increase in those, which is why we implemented our squad program, which I'll talk about in a little bit, to help mitigate some of those high-risk, lower frequency calls, although they're becoming higher frequency. Last year, we responded to 248 fire calls, 70 of those being structure fires, and those are actual structure fires defined by INFRS, not food on a stove or anything like that, actual structure fires that necessitate having 4 engine companies at that fire scene to mitigate the call. The total number of fires, you can see 248, so not quite one a day, but every 2 out of 3 days we were responding to some kind of fire call. In addition, rescue and EMS calls, almost 4,000 what we call rescue and EMS calls, and these include motor vehicle accidents. You can see extrication and rescues, things like that, higher than we've seen in the past. The special operations, it's again where we deal with those specialty type calls, more of the high risk, low frequency that include the hazmat, out of the norm things like our OES engine responding to the wildland campaigns, our squad, and our honor guard. With hazmat, we responded to 54 hazardous materials calls last year, again, higher than we have had in the past, ranging anywhere from the small natural gas ruptures to complex ammonia releases in the town. We were able to add 3 hazmat specialists to our cadre this year, bringing the number that we have now to 8. They're part of a county team. These individuals have gone and taken 240 hours of specialized training, and they continually train monthly with the county to be able to mitigate these, because when something does happen to this scale and event, a train derailment, a ammonia release, you're gonna need a lot of resources there to do a lot of different things. The OES engine, we responded to 10 campaigns this last year in California, Nevada, and even Puerto Rico during the hurricane. Doing everything from overhead work to structure protection, handling construction, spotting for aircraft, even building roads. Our guys have done it all on these different campaigns. The squad program, this was the first full year of the inception of the squad program. This year, our crews have furthered their skills in trench rescue, heavy lift extrication, rope systems, and every shift they're out there training. And we've put a lot of these new special skills into use this year, specifically a few calls that I can recall on the freeway and involving entangled children and incidents like that. So lastly, our honor guard, which along with the police honor guard makes up the Turlock honor guard, and they've become well known in the state and been called on to assist other jurisdictions with events, funerals and memorials and ceremonies and things like that. Training. So training this year, we are almost at completion of our 3-story burn container, which realistically will be the envy of the rest of the county. We get that up and running. It will be up and running by the time the academy starts. It's going to allow us to do all kinds of different live fire training, something that it's hard to get your hands on, live fire training, and something that's just going to benefit everybody from the newest firefighter to the city manager, as we go out and just get to practice over and over on that. And we're also working on some, trying to get some language in with the county to be able to recoup some funds from the county to allow some of our neighboring departments to use it under supervision as well. So hopefully we'll have some good news as far as that goes to bring in some income sources. This year's training hours, you can see, have gone up dramatically, and again, that's in conjunction with the squad program and the hazmat, trying to get people trained for these other types of calls. I expect it to increase even more this year now with the advent of these newer firefighters we're bringing on. It'll be more of a back to basics year as we get them brought up to speed. And again, there's more statistics there. Our fire prevention division, Chief Gomez, back there, he works with businesses and the other departments, the development community. He's responsible for so many different things. And he's been a one-man show, although the last 4 months we've been able to shadow him with one of our captains. And before Councilman Bublak answers, he is putting together a presentation for the next council meeting to bring back the levels of efficiency that we've realized from that, but I can tell you it has been significant, the turnaround times and everything. So we're very, very pleased with that. He's also in charge of our arson and investigation team. As you can see this year, we had a total of 35 arsons, which is right around what our average is. We have arson investigators on each shift. And if you look at the estimated total fire loss, the 2013 skewed because that was a lactalis fire, which accounted for most of that. But and again, dollar loss a little higher this year than in the past years, but that's because of a few significant fires that we did experience. And then finally, neighborhood services, also under the fire department and underneath Chief Gomez is strictly quality of life issues, and they do quite a bit, as you can see in here. Weed abatements, 529 weed abatements this year, 1,200 locations where they took care of graffiti. Abandoned vehicles, I asked about this morning with our neighborhood services. There's definitely been an uptick in abandoned vehicles in 2017 as people become more vigilant and we are able to get out there and mitigate them more. Snipe signs, which has been a topic. We removed 2,800 snipe signs in 2017, and along with that, 510 shopping carts. And one of the bigger abatements we did complete was the 323 Columbia, the church fire, which is had a notice of completion in the consent calendar today, and Chief Gomez will give an update on the lien process during the staff updates as far as that goes. And lastly, our social media continues to grow. Candidly, this is something that some of the younger guys in the department take on, which thankfully, but in Facebook, we're over 5,600 followers, 1,200 followers on Twitter, and we've had 47,000 views on the YouTube account. So it continues to grow and reach out to different people, not just for the fires that are going on, but some of the great things that our RAC and our firefighters are doing in the community. So with that, be happy to answer any questions. I know I breezed through it pretty quickly, but they're...
On the social media posts, when you break it down, how many can be attributed to firefighter Meldon specifically? Do we know? Half? 3/4 now?
I'd say between him and Captain Tidwell, there's
Tidwell
quite a
gives
few.
him up for his money, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, any questions or comments? Great report. Any questions or comments from the council? Yes. We'll come back. Any questions or comments from the audience on this item? All right, bring it back. Discussion, questions, move forward? Yeah, very good report, I agree. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Bublak, seconded by Councilmember Dehart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Accepting the City of Turlock Fire Department 2017 Annual Report. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. I know that it wasn't just you that put this together, so to your entire team, very good job. Moving on, a request to appropriate $802,230 to salary and benefit accounts as a result of adoption of tentative agreements with Turlock Associated Police Officers, Turlock Management Association Public Safety, Turlock City Employees Association, Turlock Management Group, and Turlock Confidential Group for the period 7/1/17 through 6/30/18. Kelly Jacobs Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. This action tonight is to deal with the fiscal impact of the temporary agreements that were reached with each one of the groups that the mayor just rattled off. Back in September and October, the actual budget amendment had never been done, but when we had our budget workshop on Saturday, this amount was included in those figures. If so, you know that's not another 802,000.
Got it.
So,
Thank you so much, Kelly. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Bublak.
So have we already started paying people? Are we, so if we don't approve this, do we get the money back? I mean, are we doing this backwards a little bit?
yeah, probably should have brought it right after the TAs were approved. Once we approved them, then should have brought them forward. Because, yeah, once you guys approve the TAs, I mean, the fiscal impact is mute at that point. I mean, meaning that you've approved, I'm sure, I'm sorry, I wasn't here at that time, but I'm sure you were told how much they were going to cost.
Right.
All right, additional questions, comments? Question or comments from the audience on this item? All right, bringing it back. What is the pleasure of the council on this item? All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacobs, seconded by Councilmember Dehart. Clerk, please call the roll.
Appropriating $802,230 to salary and benefit accounts as detailed in Attachment A from each respective fund's unallocated reserves as the result of adoption of tentative agreements with Turlock Associated Police Officers, TAPO, Turlock Management Association Public Safety, TMAPS, Turlock City Employees Association, TCEA, Turlock Management Group, and Turlock Confidential Group for the period 7/1/17 through 6/30/18. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thanks so much, Kelly. Next, a request to authorize the city manager and city attorney to finalize agreements with Vernon Construction and Roofing Incorporated to repair the roofs at fire stations 2 and 3 and appropriate $7,800. Kelly Jacobs Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. This item was included when we had our budget workshop on the Saturday, but I was hoping to bring it forward tonight for your consideration as they are roof leaks and there's water that leaks into the fire stations when it rains. So we're hoping to move forward with this before any, more damage is done to the structure. Although I did hear it was going to be 80 pretty soon at the end of the week. But no, we need to fix these.
Any additional comments or questions from the council? All right, any comments or questions from the audience? All right, bringing it back. Yes, Councilmember Bublak.
Before I introduce the motion resolution, I just want to say that I hate when these things get caught up. These things should come to us immediately before. I bet that we probably wouldn't have spent so much money because of the damage and the length of the time. So somehow we need to be better at doing this, because it's the taxpayers' money and I don't want to waste it like this. And this isn't wasting, we have to get it fixed, but as I said, it costs more now probably. So I'll introduce the motion and the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Authorizing the city manager and city attorney to finalize agreements with Vernon Construction and Roofing, Inc. to repair the roofs at fire stations 2 and 3, and directing the city manager to execute all documents and agreements necessary for the roof repairs in forms approved by the city attorney in an amount not to exceed $7,800. appropriating $7,800 to account number 110-30300-43120-005, building maintenance repairs from Fund 110 General Fund unallocated reserves for roof repairs at fire stations 2 and 3. Councilmember Esquer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart,
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Soisek.
Yes, motion and resolution carried 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have a green sheet for item E. It's a request to approve the forgivable loan agreement, promissory note, regulatory agreement, and deed of trust with United Samaritans Foundation in the amount not to exceed $175,000 for the rehabilitation of bathrooms for City Project 219 South Broadway, and award bid and approve a construction agreement with Gomez and Sons General Contractors Incorporated or the lowest responsible bidder in the amount of $109,870 and appropriate $75,000. Mayor Pitt.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is as a result of some, well, good news and bad news. So as you might remember that the United Samaritans owns the building across the street that was an old hotel that leased to We Care that has housed the men's emergency shelter for the last several years. The emergency shelter in its infancy was open from November to March for 3 or 4 months out of the year. As you might remember, part of our role in terms of the city is to build the capacity of our nonprofit service providers in dealing with some of those most vulnerable populations. The good news is that We Care, as a result of some of the income that they've been able to derive from the Lambert project, which we helped them with, has now been able to use those monies to leverage additional grant dollars. So now that facility is open almost 10 months out of the year instead of 4. The good news is it's open 10. The bad news is the bathrooms are very old and can't withstand the additional use of having that facility open. And as you might remember, that is a facility that houses 49 men. So the item before you is as the mayor mentioned, it's the forgivable loan agreement. So it's forgivable over the 20-year period as long as they continue to use that building for its purpose. It's awarding the bid to the contractor for the scope of work and then appropriating some additional funds in that line item to make sure that we cover this cost. I will mention that we've added additional money into the contingency, which is why it's gotten a little higher than what the initial contract is. But that building is really quite old, and what we've discovered working across the street with the 8 units across here on A Street is we've gotten into issues with plumbing and lead pipes and things like that that we didn't foresee until you open up the walls. So we've allowed some additional contingency to deal with that we can fix it up to code and appropriately. And again, we had routed this through, but with the expertise from Myers-Nave and housing, they were able to actually update with regard to the CFRs to make sure that all the loan agreements are compliant with the most recent version and latest versions of the Code of Federal Regulations. So I'm very appreciative to Stephanie Downs with Myers-Nave for the additional review, and that's why it got green sheeted. So thank you very much for your tolerance and patience. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments for Maren? Any questions or comments from the audience for Maren on this item? Straightforward, very good. What's the pleasure of the council on the 2 motions and resolution? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Jacob, seconded by Councilmember Dehart for both motions and the resolution.
Approving the forgivable loan agreement, promissory note, regulatory agreement, and deed of trust with United Samaritans Foundation in the amount not to exceed $175,000 for the rehabilitation of bathrooms for City Project 219 South Broadway, and authorizing the city manager to sign all documents required to effectuate the loan and complete this project on behalf of the City of Turlock. Awarding bid and approving a construction agreement with Gomez and Sons General Contractors, Inc., or the lowest responsible bidder for City Project 219 South Broadway, Turlock, California, in the amount of $109,870. Appropriating $75,000 to account number 255-41485-47210-006, Housing Program Services Program Public Improvements to be funded via a transfer from account number 255-41485-472-10001, Housing Program Services Program Affordable Housing Development to complete the necessary funding required for this project. Councilmember Esquer?
Yes.
Councilmember Dehart?
Yes.
Councilmember Bublak?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Mayor Soisek?
Yes, both motions and resolution passed 5-0. Thanks so much, Mayor. Moving on to staff updates, we have no policy goals and implementation plan update, no administrative services or development services. Within fire, there's a written staff update included in the packet, and then I believe Fire Marshal Gomez has a verbal update on 323 Columbia.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to give you a brief update where we are in Columbia. We thought we had the resolution and the synopsis completed, and before City Attorney Norton left, we presented it to her. She took a day to review it and marked it up pretty good for us. So we are hoping to work with Jose's team. He has it with all the markups, and we're looking forward to working with his team to get this completed just as soon as possible. And I think we're going to shoot for April 24th to bring it to council for approval. So if there's any hiccups in between now and then, I will surely update you with that as well.
Perfect.
Any questions?
Questions, comments? No, thank you so much
Thank
for hard
you.
work on that project. All right, moving on, we have no items for 5, 6, and the police department has a written staff update included in the packet as well. Moving on to items, yo, Chief, I'm sorry. You can, yeah, come forward. I'm sorry, just said written. Let's get verbal. What's going on?
I wanted to give the council a quick update, just a verbal update in regards to our emergency council meeting for the radio CAD RMS project. Mr. Mayor, there was some questions that were asked, even though it was unanimously approved. I felt it's prudent that we did the work and came back. I gave you some estimates in regards to the difference between Tate and Motorola. Our current system is Motorola, and using the Tate system, which is the county system, would have necessitated us repurchasing all of our radios for the police department that we purchased. So we ran the numbers based on current cost of our radios. The total amount, inclusive of an estimate for utilizing all 6 of our licenses rather than 2. 2 of the licenses were estimated at a conversion rate of $391,579 from the company. So I just took that and added 4 more licenses because we wouldn't do this system if we can't incorporate the whole city. Mm-hmm. So we came up with a number, and the total cost for Tate, buying all the new equipment inclusive of Cal State, PD, all our mobiles, all our portables, came to $4,329,761. The difference between them and Motorola is approximately $602,000. Even if I take out the estimate of 4 channel conversions of $783,000, we're still breaking even there. So it's a great move. I just wanted to bring council up on that because there was a question. And just so we're very clear, redundancy means duplication. Does not mean extension of coverage based on 2 different systems. So council made an excellent decision then. I wanted to update you on that. One further update, huge concerns regarding our current power system. We are experiencing some severe issues. Today was pretty bad. The one that failed on us that we were hoping to use as a replacement, that's been around for 8-9 years, Delta Wireless took it to their Stockton office and took it apart, and while they cannot do anything with the proprietary mechanisms in there or the circuitry, board circuits, solid state circuitry, there were multiple transistors and resistors that are available like on Radio Shack, and to quote one of my partners over here, they MacGyvered it. It fired up. They're pretty hopeful it'll stay fired up. They're more hopeful with this MacGyvered power box than the current one that's in place because they know that's failing. They can actually see the resistors and the circuit board swelling. So we're going to go ahead and do the swap. hopefully it gives us more breathing room until we can get the system replaced. So I want to let you know, so we will be doing the swap on Friday. We're hoping worst case scenario 20 minutes. And fire has already been made aware, as the other department directors and the police department. The other department directors will go without communication systems while we do the swap. So I wanted to give you guys that update.
Thank you so much, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? No, really appreciate it. All right, moving on to matters for the agenda, non-agenda items. I don't see any. So we'll move on to council items for future consideration. We have two. A request to provide direction to staff to consider whether staff time and city resources should be expended on the request of Councilmember Bublak for future consideration of every dead tree removed that additional lighting is installed in its place to address safety concerns, and provide direction to staff to consider whether staff time and city resources should be expended on the request of Councilmember Bublak for future consideration of establishment of an ordinance regarding a 4-week department director rotation of the interim city manager position. Interim city manager or Councilmember Bublak, who wants to take that first? Oh, yeah.
First, let me just say that had we just discussed it amongst ourselves, we wouldn't have wasted council or staff time trying to do this. These are just ideas that we come to the table with. I've done for 9.5 years. You just bring something forward and you address it right there. Colleagues say, yeah, I'd like to do a little study or whatever. But this seems like it's taken so long, it lost its momentum, and I'm many constituents, when I bring something forward, they don't know when something's going to be on the agenda. I can't keep them updated. There's something missing with us just being able to have on the fly a conversation. Hey, you guys, we're all sitting here. What do you think? So having said that, it wasn't for every dead tree, every lighting. So it was, if there's a dead tree and it makes sense to put more lighting in, and especially in these assessment districts where they have the money already set aside, we need to start having more lighting. That helps the safety of our community. So that was my concept for that. In reference to the establishing of the ordinance, it's about our department heads not having to take on the brunt of everything. If every 4 weeks somebody else would have to fill in, if our new city manager shows up and they have already planned for a month off, then one person would do it, or 2 people. But it should never go this long with one person. It's not fair to the fire department, and it's not fair to the other departments to not have that ability to learn what's going on within our workforce here. So I put these 2 motions out there. I have no idea if they even make sense any longer. It did 8 months ago.
Okay. Interim city manager?
Councilmember Bublak, I'm sorry you feel that way. I could just, reference you to Resolution 2008-019. I mean, I can only offer you what you approved. I can't.
That's not fair.
I cannot do things on my own and say, well, we'll have a conversation. Let's do it. I don't know what the previous city managers did, but I'm sorry you feel that way.
Just real quick, if I could. All of us here are the boss of our city manager. It would have really behooved all of us to have known. We're going to come forward with another one in a second for Councilmember Esquer. Had you let us know that that's how you were going to do this, because that's not actually why it was made, but I'm not going to sit here and mix words, but that's not helpful. We're here for expeditious behavior for the sake of our community. And if that was what you were going to do 8 months ago, you should have told us, hey, we're not going to do anything so give me it in writing. That would have been really helpful. But that resolution isn't pursuant to this right here. So.
Would you think I would assume that you would have followed the resolution? You would think I would have needed to ask you not to do the resolution? Just walking into the door? Would you think I would assume that you would follow what you had already signed? If you'd have told me, Chief, it's been a week. You don't have to do it that way. Well, I would have said, okay, well, how do we do it? Well, the other 2 people did it this way. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, gentlemen, how do you want to progress?
For the record, so in council items for future consideration, we have here, and it says that we do adhere to the resolution from 2008-019. And so when those 2 items were brought up, there wasn't any motion or second from anyone else to move forward. It wasn't a discussion. And so we create the agenda. As mayor, that's part of my responsibilities. As the city manager, it's part of his responsibilities to create the agenda, and we're open to ideas going forward. But we also plan 6, 8 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks at a time to make sure that we are getting things on target. And so if this discussion, if you guys want to discuss both these things, we can do that now. But again, the chief, as the interim city manager, was adhering to the resolution that was here, and I think it's safe to assume that we all know that that's how we're going to be operating. It's under the resolution that's stated within the agenda. So, I mean, I'd love to substantively just see, do we want to move forward on either of these two motions, or do we feel that this is not necessary and we can bring it up at a different time? What's the pleasure of the council? Anyone? Yes, Councilmember Scare.
Actually, on the discussing the motion on the lighting, as most of you know, that was part of my campaign, was better lighting, safer streets, safer sidewalks. So, yeah, I would like to see us look at this a little bit deeper. Again, when I heard replace every tree, every dead tree with a light, I was kind of like, what? Right. So that kind of caught me off guard. But yeah, I would like to see us look at better lighting for especially our parks and stuff. I know most of us have talked about Donnelly Park and the issues that went on there. Maybe would have been lessened if it was better lighting out there. So yeah, I absolutely would like to see this go.
Yeah, I agree, and I echo the sentiments of Councilmember Scare. I think it'd be problematic when there's a dead tree to put in a light right there as well. I think that's not only costly, but it doesn't make sense. There's a formula of how the light spacing is done. But at the same time, I know Director Cook and actually Allison, and kind of we've had a lot of conversations about this and lighting in parks. And some of the parks, if you guys have noticed, have switched over to LEDs that are brighter for more safety. And then I also know Director Cook has been really working hard to increase replace some of the older wattage bulbs, the older ones, I'm getting this wrong, into LEDs that are brighter, they're clearer, that last longer. And so that could be a larger conversation that we have. In addition, I know that Stanislaus State, in one of our education roundtables at 7 o'clock in the morning every 3 months, talked about around Stanislaus how there's not sufficient lighting there. And so that's something that has some budget ramifications. And so perhaps we bundle those together about lighting in general. I think that we drop maybe the dead tree conversation can be a little later, but maybe we talk about lighting in general and use existing lights. That way it's quicker and easier and more cost effective, and then we can build from there. I think that's a really worthy idea, and so I'd be willing to place that on the agenda if you guys all think that's worth staff. Does that meet the spirit of your motion?
Whatever, if the council.
Okay. Well, perfect. All right, well, so we'll do that. Is there a pleasure to get, or is that, what else is the council desire on the second item? Do we feel that that's necessary at this time?
The 4-week rotation? Okay. Yeah, I don't know, but I see that 4 weeks, changing the interim city manager every 4 weeks, in concept, that might be okay, but then I don't know. That seems kind of chaotic. So I don't know. I'd be willing to discuss it though. So let's talk about it.
You know, I agree. I think that Councilmember Scare, you bring up something. I think one of the biggest reasons for the public why we're having this discussion right now is because our staff is taxed. They are overworking. We talked and we heard in the Saturday when we talked about budget augmentations, a lot of requests for additional staffing because they're overworked, and so this is why we're having a discussion now whether it's worthy. I agree it can be chaotic. I think that that's why we take it serious when we appoint an interim city manager, and we looked at, for example, to use the fire chief as an example, we looked at which departments had depth at the time, and we did bring on the battalion chief at the time. That was something new, and so we had Gary Carlson that we felt could take over. That was part of the rationale. I think the consistency is good. I don't think we anticipated it being this long, and we're looking forward to the interim city manager's time at the helm to come to an end. I think he is as well, and so I think that he's done a great job, but the rotational aspect seems a little too rigid for me. Maybe chaotic but rigid, meaning we can assess it as it goes along. So I don't feel it warrants it, but Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, I think as long as we're grinding sausage, we might as well just open up the discussion. I think that the idea, though, having merit, I think is impractical from the standpoint that along about the time you figure out who the players are and around the table, your time's up and it's for the next person to step up and do their part. I think if we had a solution that was desirable and available, and had we had the willingness to pursue, there are individuals through the ICMA that can offer the service. It's we're sitting here operating with in a budget-saving mode as a result of not having. However, those dollars, if we really wanted to approach that solution as a solution, there's that out there as well. So we've talked about that in various venues. I think at the appropriate time, maybe we can talk about that. But a month at a time, just about the time you figure out who the players are, you're off to doing your own thing again. So I would not be supportive of that.
Yeah. Council members.
If I could just piggyback off of Councilmember DeHart's comment there, if I could just have a flashback real quick to September 26th, that was kind of my intention, that we bring in a retired person so that we could not have to have any other department heads have so many losses. And so, hindsight, 2020.
Absolutely. So again, we're talking about the merits because I don't want to get. I see the look from the attorney a little bit. We don't want to get into whether we would vote on this. It's whether we want to expend staff resources on this. So, yes, Councilmember Jacob.
I think I would just probably like to add to the conversation my gratitude to Chief Deloney for taking on the responsibility without any additional pay. I've been more than pleased with your work ethic and your response times, and of course, nobody anticipated you having to fill this position for this amount of time, but strongly appreciate all the extra work that you've taken on, and I think our fire department has done fantastic under Interim Chief Carlson, so I don't see the merit of moving forward with this at this time.
Okay. So if there's any additional, yes, Councilmember Scarrett, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the 4 weeks to me, I thought would be didn't really work for me. Again, none of us thought that this was going to last, 8 months? I think we're going into our 8th month. Maybe we want to talk about this so that we have in the case, in the eventful case, or that this ever happens again, so that we don't tie up one director for 7 or 8 months. Maybe it's something that we need to talk about for the future, just to say, hey, this happened, let's not let it happen again.
Absolutely. I think I agree with the sentiments. I think right now, though, I think we're at a point where we're close. The city management recruitment's out, and we're progressing down that road, and hopefully by the end of April, beginning of May, we'll have a permanent city manager. I think it's a little rigid to do a blanket discussion of saying 4, 6, 8 weeks. We don't know the individual circumstances in the future for future councils when the interim, and I'm hoping once we have a permanent city manager, it's for quite a while that, so we won't have to be dealing with that situation. So I'm hearing that it's not really worth going down this road at this time with staff resources. Please speak up. Otherwise, if you think, okay, we're gonna move on. Yes, attorney.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. Given that the agenda and the staff report do call for a motion, just for the record, if we could get a motion on what item to move forward to provide more staff time on to bring back to the council.
All right, so is there a motion from anyone to provide more staff time to either of these? Is there a motion?
I move that we look into
the lighting and expand the idea to kind of other sources. Director Cook, you kind of heard the discussion. Is that fine? Okay, perfect. Do I have a second?
Just a point of clarification. As it's written here, every tree that gets removed, a light gets put in its place, or are we amending it, and what exactly are we voting on? Because I think that needs to be clear.
And not to get sideways, but attorney, because we create the agenda, myself and the city manager, and I've heard the discussion, it doesn't sound like either of these motions have the desire from the council to move forward, as stated. But I've heard loud and clear the discussion about wanting increased lighting, increase in parks and different things. Can we just agendize that without having to take a motion?
you could definitely take direction from your council as you have in other situations when you bring up an item, future agenda. Mayor, you hear the conversation, if your colleagues are willing to move that item forward,
Correct.
then I believe then you go ahead and put it on the agenda.
Yeah, so I hear what you've said, Councilmember Scare and Councilmember Bublak, and I saw a nod in the back from Director Cook that he kind of heard some directions, some ideas, and so let's try and bring that to, back in the next probably 2 or 3 meetings, so probably end of April, beginning of May, if that's sufficient for everyone. Is that fine?
That's sufficient direction.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go on to item B, to request to provide direction to staff to consider whether staff time and city resources should be expended on the request of Councilmember Scare for future consideration to conduct a one-time half-day council retreat. Councilmember Scare?
Yes, I came up with this a while back because, and I was asked why I wanted to do this, and essentially the reason I gave was because the people sitting up here, there's 5 of us sitting up here, and we don't know each other. I don't know the people I'm working with. You guys don't know me. How can we agree on running a city if we don't know each other? This retreat to me was more of a team building type retreat that I was suggesting. I think they're looking at a 4-hour session with a third-party, non-partial moderator, facilitator. That was my intent, and that is still my intent. I don't think it's too late for that. I think we need to know who we are. We need to know that we can discuss things openly and not expect to agree on every single thing that we're going to be talking about, but then also to be able to say that's okay. We don't agree, and move on. You know, so I think that's important to us.
City. Oh, it's Councilmember Bublak.
So I heard you in November, and I hear you today, and I agree with you, so I'll introduce the motion.
Interim City Manager, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of thoughts. So the cost for the retreats can vary and range from $2,000 to $8,000. The City of Modesto's cost to conduct a retreat was $8,000, and the funds are not budgeted for this expense, and appropriation of funds would have to be identified. Just wanted.
So going back to, I heard you as well, and that's part of the reason why I said, can we get some rough figures? Is this something that would have 0 cost or actually have a cost? And so that's part of what I think we need to have weight going forward. So right now, just know that there would be a cost attached to it. Yes.
In previous years, and I believe before he was sworn in, Councilmember DeHart was present when we had a no-cost one. It was held at the chamber, and it was a special meeting, and some media showed up. I believe Mr. Franzen was there. No cost. Okay. So I don't know that we need to go to Monterey and enjoy the weather.
Is that what you're proposing?
No.
Okay, so it could range from 0 to actually a cost.
Again, just to piggyback, yeah, I was also, and I talked to the interim city manager, and I said, yeah, I'm looking for no cost. I'm looking for a volunteer. There's got to be somebody in the city out there that would be willing to sit down with the 5 of us and help us work some of this stuff, some of these details out. I personally sent out some emails to some of the professors at the university. I'm looking for somebody to actually volunteer their time, so I'm looking for 0 cost. I'm thinking the venue may cost money, but then I didn't even think of the chamber office. That shouldn't cost us anything. So I like that suggestion.
Subject. All right, what's the pleasure? Yes, Councilman T.
Thanks for just the opportunity for additional comment, Mayor. I am fully supportive of the idea that we have an event such as this. I think that the one I attended that Councilmember Bublak referred to was extremely helpful in helping each of us to understand just what each other was kind of like all about, and how we thought and why we thought in certain circumstances. Not so that we were predicting and violating Brown or anything like that, but rather just to take time out and breathe and figure out who each other was. I think that's valuable. I think it would be more valuable in January following the election. After each election in January, when we have an opportunity for a new council to be seated, I think that's really the more important opportunity that we need to take advantage of. So we just offer that as a bit of additional consideration.
Is that amending the motion to?
I'd like to
consider
see
it?
if that would be an acceptable amendment.
All right. What are the thoughts on Councilmember Bublak to having the?
It's your wish.
I see your point, but the thing is, it's already gone on for a few months, and we have an election coming in November, you're right. Okay, we could have 3 new people up there technically, guys. And so, I don't know. Putting it off any longer, I think, is not necessary. I'm working with you guys right now. So, we're working together right now. Let's try to get it done now. We're always putting things off for later, and then things fall through the cracks and all of a sudden don't happen. We've seen that happen too many times. I'd like to see it not happen.
If I were to amend my motion to say at no cost, would that bring everybody around?
Music to our ears. Huh?
Right?
Yeah.
BYOB?
I'm curious, are we voting on a meeting in which the topic is open-ended and we're able to discuss freely our aspirations or goals for the city, or what? I don't know what the format is like, so I'm not sure what the scope of discussion could actually entail that would be productive beyond maybe having one-on-one conversations with one another and getting to know each other individually instead of in a group forum with media present and the public present.
Well,
So
from what I understand, that's exactly what you, media has welcome to come, the public is welcome to attend. It's an open meeting and open-ended, not agendized. We're not talking about actual business. We're just talking about how we conduct business and how we communicate with each other.
Yeah, Councilmember DeHart.
I've overheard and been part of numerous conversations through the League of California Cities who have discussed this very issue. How do we have an event like this that is productive, that is helpful, so that each member gets maximized use out of understanding who the other council members are? There are as many opinions about this type of event as there are cities in the state of California as to whether or not they're even legal, seriously. Perhaps the attorney could enlighten us to some degree, but in reality, you've got as many concerns over the Brown Act. It does, it doesn't. What can you discuss? What can't you discuss? How much does it cost? How much shouldn't it cost? I'm in favor of opportunities like the one we had in January of 2011. If there was an opportunity to recapture that structure and pursue something of that nature, I'd be all in favor of it. I would still say that maximum benefit to our taxpayers, the people sitting out here, would best be served by an event that was conducted in January post-election, simply from the standpoint that that's the group of people that really needs to get their stuff together. We're already nearly 2 years into this particular term, new terms. And I just think that we may be overdoing it. Well, I don't know what the mayor's availability is going to be, or Councilmember Bublak, the vice mayor, any of our availability is on any given Saturday between now and November, oh, by the way. Something tells me there's going to be an event or 3 or 5 or 12 between now and then, to which some of us may be committed. So it does kind of lend itself to some difficulty even in scheduling. Idea, absolutely, positively in favor of it. I think that there are opportunities for no costing it. I think that there's maximum benefit to be gained. I just think the timing is the issue for me.
So I'm hearing the discussion, and again, in creating these agendas, perhaps I don't hear from Councilmember, please correct me, Councilmember Jacob or Councilmember DeHart, wanting to move forward with this necessary before the election, but Councilmember Scare, I like the idea of trying to strengthen the cohesion of this council, and I think that that's where your heart is, and that's what the drive is from this motion. So I know tomorrow we have a meeting where the ad hoc committee on talking about campaign finance disclosure. And so perhaps I'm looking at the attorney if I can continue this conversation, because I do have the ability to agendize things in the future and try and get more of the spirit I see about bringing something back.
Absolutely, you could have the conversation with Councilmember Esquer. And just to remind the council, all you're voting on right now is whether to bring back the item with actual data, figures, potential dates, et cetera. You're not deciding whether it's going to happen right now. It's really the decision as to whether you want to direct staff to bring you back more information. As you can see, the interim city manager brought some raw data here. Definitely not all options that are out there, but at least brought some raw data to inform the council. But your vote today is not to actually hold the date, the retreat, but to tell staff, please work on it and bring us back options. That's just the point of clarification there. But can you continue to have that conversation individually, Mayor? Of course.
Yes,
which if I may add, has an inherent cost to it.
Yes.
So there's no such thing as a no-cost option.
Right. And that's why I'm proposing, and by the way, again, to the public, we have staff that are working diligently, so that's why we're debating this right here, whether to tax them with another thing. It really falls to Stacy and to Jen and to the city manager. So with our whopping salaries that we get as council members and mayor, Councilmember Esquer, if you and I want to continue this conversation and kind of brainstorm some ideas to bring back at a future date, I think that could suffice. That way, that's a relatively no-cost option. Yes, we might have some support from Stacy and asking for some homework, but it won't be too much if that fits the spirit of your motion. All right, would that work, attorney? Is that okay?
Yes, that's definitely okay. So no direction was actually given today. And I'm sorry, Mayor, just to clean up, just for the minutes, because I know Jennifer did kind of look at me like what happened on 11A. I think there just direction was given regarding the lighting. As we've heard it there, I looked around, everybody was head nodding, so it seemed like the direction was unanimous to move forward, not with exactly what was here, but with bringing back options regarding improving the lighting in the city.
And then for cleaning this up, do you withdraw your motion for staff resources to be used and allow the process to be taking place between myself and Councilmember Esquer? Is that fine with you, Councilmember Esquer? All right. Perfect, yeah. We'll go get some coffee at Lamo, we'll figure this out. All right, perfect. I think we have a direction. Perfect. Okay, moving on, council comments. Are there any council comments here? Yes. Oh, yes, Councilmember DeHart, sorry.
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, we've had a series of meetings. I'm speaking to the ad hoc committee to address the findings of Myers-Nave pertaining to the chamber. We've had a series of meetings, Councilmember Bublak, myself, Mr. Franson, and representatives from the chamber. And we have submitted or narrowed down, winnowed down some items that the attorney is working on to present back to council. I just wanted to give you that update.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Additional comments? I have one, yes, Councilmember Esquer.
I just had quick question. Earlier in the meeting, we were talking about some streets, and a SB1 list was mentioned. I was wondering, I don't know about the list. Can we share that, or is that?
Yes, absolutely. So Nathan Bray is nodding his head. I'm doing it for the record. He's like, why? Because I think it's really important, because they Measure L list came out, that was pre-SB1, and then then they kind of came together with this. So Nathan, interim city manager, if you guys could get together so we could have that list, that'd be great. Yeah. And then I just have one final comment. I've been out in the community and heard a lot of rhetoric about our designation as a sanctuary city. We've apparently made it onto a list somewhere. I'm not sure of it, but a lot of people come up to me and have been concerned about this. There's also been some misconstrued understanding of our inclusivity proclamation, talking about how all people are welcome. I think I speak for the council in the fact that those that are going to come into our community also need to abide by local rules. And I'm not talking about immigration status. I'm talking about MS-13 and others that would break the law. And so I confirmed with the chief and confirmed with the city attorney that we are not, in fact, a sanctuary city, and that we do cooperate with the federal authorities. And I think that's really important to maintain. And so I've asked the city attorney to come up with an informational item or another item to bring forward in a future date on this topic, so that we're just more aware and make sure that we have the facts out in front of us as to the fact that this city does work with federal authorities when appropriate. And so we don't want to subject ourselves to losing federal funding or any of those things. And so that's just what I've heard, and so I just wanted to dispel that rumor out here at the dais. All right, closed session. Attorney, what do we have?
Few items under closed session, Mayor. We have conference with labor negotiators under Government Code 54957.6A, and that is with the Turlock Associated Police Officers, Turlock City Employee Association, Turlock Firefighters Association, Turlock Management Association, and unrepresented employees. We also have conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956.9D2, potential cases, 2 of them.
All right, perfect. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Do you have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember DeHart, second by Councilmember Scare. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.